Hello everybody, Lord Almighty here. Today is Sunday, August 26th, 2018, and I'm here at a pond that I have never fished before to see if I can figure it out. But there's a little bit of a twist because I did not bring any fishing gear with me. The only stuff I have is the emergency fishing gear that I always keep in my car. So I'm going to be pretty limited with what I'm going to use today. So let's see what I'm going to be using. So right here I've got a 6.5 foot medium light St. Croix travel rod, and I've got a little Abu Garcia Black Max reel. This is always in my car. It never leaves the car, so it's with me 100% of the time when I'm out and about, for a couple of different reasons. First of all, if I come across a pond or a stream or whatever that I want to fish, you know, in my everyday travels, and I didn't plan ahead and bring any fishing gear with me, I've got something that I can use. Second of all, if I'm going fishing, you know, a planned fishing trip, and something happens to the rod and reel that I have to where it's not usable anymore, I have this backup so that the fishing day isn't over. I can just break this out and I can use it. So this is going to be the rod and reel setup. This is spooled with 6-pound test right now, which may seem a little bit light, but I like to use a bit lighter line so that I can throw smaller lures. I actually prefer using smaller lures on bodies of water that I'm not familiar with, because that'll give you a better assessment of what kind of fish are in there and if they're in there in any abundance. So that's the rod and reel. Let's take a look at the lures I'm going to be using. So I've got this little tackle pack here, and I've got 3 boxes in it. And the first box, which is in this little front compartment, this is a pretty comprehensive assortment of panfish jigs. And I keep a pretty big assortment of these because these are probably my ultimate confidence bait. I feel like no matter what body of water I go on, if I throw these around, I'm going to at least catch some sunfish or some crappie or something like that. So I want to make sure I have plenty of these. I have some larger sizes around back here. You know, if there's any larger panfish or bass around, I can throw those. So that's box number 1. Box number 2 is a selection of soft plastic baits. So you can see I've got my hooks, I've got my weights, I've got some little 4-inch Senkos here, I've got some finesse worms, and some soft jerk baits. I've got some Keitech swim baits, and I've got tubes in both light and dark colors. So I feel like these baits will cover a wide variety of situations, which is really what you want. You know, when you have a limited space to, you know, put your emergency tackle, which I imagine most of us do, you don't want to, you know, be lugging around a big bulky tackle box. You want to kind of pare down the lure selections to stuff that you know is going to work and is going to cover a lot of different scenarios. And that's kind of what the theme of this box is. You know, it's got baits that you can fish slow, fast, and in between. So that's box number 2. Let's take a look at the third and final box. So here's box number 3. You can see I've got some inline spinners up top, along with several minnow plugs, floating, sinking, and suspending models. I've got some micro cranks here for panfish. I've got a couple of top waters in case I see a lot of top water activity, and I've got a couple of small spinner baits as well. Now, again, this is not a comprehensive selection of lures that you might bring on a you know, a planned fishing trip. This is just very, very pared down, very basic. Try to cover as many bases as you can with a limited amount of tackle, and I think that this assortment is pretty successful at that. So that's the tackle I'm going to be using today. So let's go ahead and put it to use. Alright, well, I am mainly interested to see if there's any largemouth bass around. So I'm going to start by throwing around the Wacky Rig Senko, because that's a pretty ubiquitous presentation. If there's any bass around, they should bite this. There we go. Fish on. All right. Little largie. Not big, but you know what? Considering I've never been here and I'm limited with my tackle, I'll take it. I'm focusing most of my efforts on areas close to shade because fish will always try to seek shade to get out of the bright sun. That's the way it's supposed to work anyway. I don't know if it works on this particular pond. I don't know this pond very well. Like I said, it's the first time I've ever been here, and I did that kind of on purpose to recreate the scenario I talked about before, where, you know, you're just driving along and you see a pond or a creek and you're like, ooh, I wonder if there's fish in there. So that's kind of what's happening here today. I don't know anything about this pond. I don't know what the best lures are. I don't know what kind of fish are in it. I just showed up and started casting. Having to make a lot of pinpoint casts around these trees. And that's why. Because that's where the bass live. It's tucked way up under that shade. Another dink largie. Not blowing them away on the size department today, but that's alright. So when you're picking out a rod to use as your backup, you want it to be an outfit that you're comfortable with. I've been fishing, you know, rods and reels like this my entire life, so I'm pretty good with them. And I can not only make long casts, but, you know, I can make the shorter cast as well. If you're more proficient with like a bait caster or something, you should probably consider that as your backup. Because you want it to be something that you can use under a bunch of different situations, because you really never know what you're going to run into when you hit up a new pond. There we go. Another dink largie. This one might be the smallest one yet. He was sitting right by that cluster of sticks in the water. He is not impressive, but he's got the right idea. Alright, so the Wacky Rig Senko gave us proof of concept, but I'm going to switch it up to something else just to show you why I carry a bunch of stuff with me instead of just, you know, a box full of Senkos. Going to go over to this little crappie jig. It's a curly tail 2-inch chartreuse on a 1/32 ounce jig head. I picked chartreuse because the water's a little bit dirty, and hopefully the fish will be able to see it a bit better. Skating conditions unsafe. Now, why on earth would they say that? It's only the middle of August. I don't know. I think they're being too cautious myself. Alright, well, I've seen some pretty consistent surface activity. It looks like fish are actually feeding on all of the dragonflies that are buzzing around. So, since they're looking up, I'm going to tie on this little popper. Even though it's sunny out, the fish are breaking, so might draw a strike or two. We shall see. Alright, well, nothing on the popper, so switch back to the panfish jig. Only I changed colors, went to a white one. White is really my go-to color. I feel like I got the best chance of a catch with that color. Well guys, I've worked this pond for about an hour and a half. Didn't take too long to work the whole thing since it's pretty small. In that time, it has pretty much filled up to capacity. Just about every single accessible piece of shoreline is occupied by anglers at present. So I'm going to take that as my cue to get on out of here. So today was really just all about giving you a brief overview and demonstration of my emergency tackle setup, which I always have in the car and is ready at a moment's notice. It doesn't have to be the same thing in your case. You can use any tackle that you want, you know, to put your emergency set together. You know, obviously today the only thing we caught anything on was the Senko, so hey, you know, if your emergency tackle consists of a pack of Senkos and a few hooks, then that's fine. I mean, you know, use what you're comfortable with, use what you have confidence in, you know, because the point is to just kind of reduce your normal tackle assortment to the bare essentials that you think you need to be successful on pretty much any body of water. So you definitely want to pick tackle that you know very well, that you're comfortable using, and you kind of want to tailor it to the conditions that you might expect to find in the areas that you frequent. So that's all I've got today. Hopefully this has given you a bit of a starting point to put together your emergency tackle, and hopefully next time you come across that little stream or pond that you weren't expecting to see, you will be ready to catch some fish. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next adventure.